the Pentagon sending 1,500 troops to the border with Mexico, AFRICOM in Sudan, the U.S. Navy in the Philippines. These are some of the things that Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder informed the press about at his Tuesday press conference.
Secretary Austin approved a temporary Department of Defense increase of an additional 1,500 military personnel to supplement U.S. Customs and Border Protection efforts on the U.S. southwest border. For 90 days, these 1,500 military personnel who will be sourced from the active duty component will fill critical capability gaps such as ground-based detection and monitoring, data entry, and warehouse support until CPB can address these needs through contracted support. Military personnel will not directly participate in law enforcement activities. It's important to note that the department is also evaluating options on how we might replace these deploying forces in stride with other sources to include potentially forces from the reserve component and contracted support. And while this request is for 90 days, I would point out that DoD has supported DHS on the southwest border for 18 of the last 22 years and every year since 2006. Shifting gears, the Department of Defense through U.S. Africa Command remains committed to supporting the Department of State's efforts in Sudan. Over this past weekend, this support involved organizing and synchronizing transportation from Khartoum to Port Sudan and on to Saudi Arabia for U.S. citizens and others who wished to depart Sudan. Today, the USNS Brunswick, along with the USS Truxtun and USS Polar, remain in the vicinity of Port Sudan and are able to provide support to the evacuation mission as needed. Additionally, ISR assets continue 24/7 overwatch over potential land evacuation routes. And AFRICOM's deconfliction cell continues to distribute relevant information to the Department of State, our allies and partners, and international NGOs to help enable informed decision-making. Looking ahead, Secretary Austin looks very forward to welcoming Philippines President Marcos to the Pentagon tomorrow. It's important to point out that we're standing at a transformational moment in the U.S.-Philippines alliance. We've made great strides recently in advancing our bilateral defense relationship from announcing 4 new enhanced defense cooperation agreement sites to successfully completing the largest ever iteration of our annual bilateral exercise, Balikatan. Secretary Austin and President Marcos will discuss a wide range of security topics, including support for the Philippines' defense modernization efforts and expanding operational cooperation in the South China Sea. And with that, we'll get to your questions. We'll go to AP Lita Baldor.
Thanks, Pat. Can you say when you expect these troops to arrive at the border, even in a range of days in the coming week, or presumably by May 11th? Would that be accurate? Do you expect these will be active duty troops, or are you going to try to have to pull some from the Guard? And third, in the past, DoD requested that DHS provide quarterly reports updating as to when and how DHS was going to be able to take over these jobs on the border. Is DoD getting these quarterly updates? And is the department confident or concerned that DHS will or won't be able to meet this requirement by the end of the fiscal year?
Yeah, thanks, Lita. So on your first question, right now I think we'll see these troops arrive as early as May 10th and then in the coming weeks. Again, these will be active duty forces, although as I mentioned at the top, we continue to explore other options so that we could return those active duty forces back to their home stations in stride with potentially reserve component or contracted entities. Again, that's work that we'll continue to do. As far as quarterly reports, I'll have to take that question for you. I can tell you that, as a matter of course, we do regularly communicate with DHS. And I think, again, we're in a situation here where DHS has requested assistance, and the Department of Defense is assisting on this important issue. So, thank you.
Is it? I'm sorry. Is it? Are you saying, just for clarification, that within this 90-day period,
correct,
you would like to replace, or you will look at replacing some of these active duty troops with National Guard or Reserve, or potentially beyond that?
Exactly. So within that 90-day period, again, Secretary Austin has approved the deployment of 1,500 active duty troops. But again, we are looking and evaluating options should we be able to replace those in stride. Okay. Jen, and then we'll go to Will.
Thank you, General Ryder. So just which units will these troops be coming from, and will they be helping with drug enforcement? Because that's what the original executive order from the president said.
Yeah, so in terms of the types of work that they'll be doing, as I highlighted at the top, these will be very much focused on support tasks to CBP. So and I'll just leave it at that. I mean what I said. In terms of the specific units, these forces will come from the Army and the U.S. Marine Corps, but I'd refer you to the services to talk about specific units that will be tasked.
And in 2018, just before the midterm elections, President Trump ordered 5,200 U.S. troops to fortify the border. At the time, Democrats and former military officials and officers came out against that, saying they were being used for political reasons. How is this different?
Yeah, so, really my focus here is on talking about what we've been asked to do and what we're doing. Clearly, DHS felt that there was a need for the Department of Defense to assist so that they can continue to do their important work. Secretary Austin approved that request, and so that's what we're focused on.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Will.
Thank you. Two questions on the border situation. First, what is the current number of troops who are there prior to the 1,500 being deployed, and what necessitated this additional deployment now? Was it the changes on May 11th that are coming up, or is there any other reason regarding it?
Yeah, that's correct. So, in light of the changes on May 11th and the anticipated surge, DHS did reach out and request this support. In terms of the number of U.S. military that are there now, there are approximately 2,500 U.S. military who are National Guard forces. They are focused, again, on supporting CBP with detection and monitoring and aviation support.
Thank you. Thank you, General. So, question on Sudan. You mentioned the three Navy ships supporting the evacuation from Port Sudan to Saudi Arabia. So, I was wondering if you can give more details on the type of activities they were involved in throughout the weekend and up until now in this supporting role.
Sure. So, to my knowledge, we had the Brunswick was able to assist with the evacuation of approximately 300 people from Port Sudan to Jeddah, where they were obviously met by U.S. Consular Affairs officials. Again, the Brunswick has returned to Port Sudan to be available to transport any additional citizens or others who may require transport out of Sudan.
And the other two ships are just in the sea in case they were called upon to be involved? Correct.
Just to provide us with options should we need that capability.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to Rio and then go back here and then I'll come back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, General. Yesterday, the U.S. and the Philippines agreed to establish a framework of trilateral cooperation with Japan and Australia, respectively. So, can you share a little bit more details, a little bit more specifics on what the Pentagon wants to do with this new trilateral format militarily moving forward?
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't have anything specific to announce today, Rio. I would tell you that the Philippines, Japan, and Australia continue to remain very essential allies for us. We obviously share a common focus and common values when it comes to promoting peace, stability, and security in the Indo-Pacific region. And so we're going to continue to look at ways that we can work together to achieve that end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General. I have a follow-up question on the visit of Philippine President Marcos to the U.S. So yesterday, White House announced that two countries are adopting a new defense guideline. So through this new defense guideline, how can U.S. and Philippines prepare for the potential contingency in the region, including the invasion of Taiwan?
Sure. You've heard the White House talk about the fact that the United States and the Philippines will be adopting bilateral defense guidelines. And what these will do is help to institutionalize key bilateral priorities, mechanisms, and processes that will help deepen our alliance. Look at enhanced bilateral planning, information sharing, accelerated defense capability development, and collaboration on emerging security technologies.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.